Welcome to this episode of the Justice Team podcast on the Justice Team Network. I'm your host, Bob Simon, and today we have a very special guest. He is a law student. He's a former Army, Green Beret. Like, what's the equivalent of what you were doing?
No, it wasn't a Green Beret. I did go through the Special Forces course.
Special Forces, Army.
Yeah, unfortunately, I didn't finish. So I joined the military as a combat engineer, and then I later went on and did some other things.
Yeah. So this is Kevin Bernstein, and I met Kevin this week because I was speaking at Loyola Law School, and he's a second-year law student at Loyola. But you're going to hear the story of how Kevin had his 16th birthday, his 18th birthday in jail for a crime that he did not commit. He later went to the military. We're going to hear that story and his journey to law school and what he's passionate about now, because I think this is unique, and I think people need to hear and understand what happened to Kevin Bernstein. Are you ready, brother?
Yeah, I'm as ready as I'm going to be.
He's never shared this story. You look good on camera. Look, that white shirt looks good.
Yeah, thanks. I wasn't sure what the dress code was going to be, so I figured it's better to overdress than underdress. But I know for next time, if there is a next time,
Yeah, so I mean, my general rule with like my tattoos is nothing below your wrist or above your neck. That's it.
Well, thankfully, I do have a lot of tattoos. You can't see them now, but
Exactly.
not on the hands and not on the neck.
That's right, because you're in trial. Like, people will just judge for no reason. All right, so Kevin, let's take us back to 2007.
So 2007, I must have been 17. I was born in 90. So, my childhood, just kind of giving you a little context before just jumping right into getting rolled up into all this nonsense. My childhood, for all intents and purposes, was pretty normal until probably I was maybe around 5. Parents got divorced and things kind of got a little weird at that point. And, I think I was ultimately looking for all the right things and all the wrong places as I got older. And, what I mean by that is just, my parents were divorced, so my dad was busy building his business. Mom was kind of sorting her life out. My parents were pretty young. And I think they were doing the best they could with what they had. But ultimately, I went out, I started looking for what I was missing at home in the streets and kind of got the crash course. And, I think with like anything else in life, the more time you spend in that environment, kind of the more things progress, and things just kind of got out of control. And eventually, fast forward to 2007, I found myself, being rolled up for an attempted murder that I didn't commit. And I spent the better part of a year, down fighting that case, went all the way to trial.
Wow.
And eventually, the charges were dismissed, but they were dismissed without prejudice. So as you know, that kind of left the door open for...
Yeah, because you were, essentially not guilty, but it didn't mean that you were innocent.
That's right, yeah. And so eventually I did get a factual finding of innocence. So, just for clarity, I was and still...
But it took... When did you finally get that factual finding of innocence?
It did, yeah. It took a while. So this all happened between like 2007, 2008. And when I was released for that offense, then I was already trying to enter the military before any of that happened. This just kind of interrupted that process. And so when I got out, I just kind of continued on where I'd left off with my recruiter, and he was just the best guy. I mean, I wouldn't be here. Between my dad and my recruiter, those are the two people that probably believed in me more than anyone else at that time. And without them, I don't know that I'd be here with you right now. So I'll forever be grateful, to them. And but that recruiter stuck by me. I mean, think about it. If you were a recruiter and this kid just got rolled up for an attempted murder, you might wash your hands of that situation. Just be like...
But you knew the recruiter prior to this?
I did.
So were you trying to get out of this street situation and get into the military at that point? Was that your goal?
That's right. Yeah, it was my dream. Yeah, it was my dream to be a special operations guy when I was a kid. I watched just like anyone else, young boys, playing with G.I. Joes, watching military movies, and
I was always a Snake Eyes guy. He was my guy. Snake Eyes was my favorite G.I. Joe.
Yeah. Snake Eyes is great, and that stuff really resonated. I think I got bullied a lot when I was a kid, and so when you see these people who are strong and self-sufficient, they can solve everyone, not just their own problems, but everyone's problems. That for me was really attractive, and I thought that the answer to all my problems was to kind of become the physical embodiment of Captain America, or at least as close to it as I could get in real life.
I love that, man. That's the code. I actually have Captain America on my arm. I have his shield.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
The reason Captain America was selected for that serum is because he was pure of heart. It wasn't the physical attributes.
Oh, he was tiny. Like Steve Rogers was was not who Captain America we know of today.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I actually have a cool Captain America shirt that I've had for years, and it just him throwing the shield. It's just say no to drugs. It's one of those vintage T-shirts that I love wearing. No, but so you're back in 2007 and 8. First of all, that means you're supposed to be in high school at this time.
Yeah, that's right. I never finished high school. I don't remember if it was the 9th or 10th grade, but I never completed. It was one of those, but I never completed high school, and I ended up getting a GED after I was released. That was a prerequisite for getting into the military. So when I was found not guilty and I was later released, my dad kind of helped me pick up where I left off. That recruiter, I believe, actually took me to my GED test appointment. I didn't have a driver's license at that time. I didn't really have anything for myself. I was a very incomplete young man at that time, and I was super lost and just trying to give my life purpose. And I think time was not on my side. I knew that if I didn't quickly kind of transition from that life, the minute they let me out, if I didn't quickly kind of pick up where I left off, that that window kind of creates a margin for error where you get wrapped up in things you don't want to be wrapped up in. So we moved with haste, and things worked out. I was able to get into the military, and here we are now. It was the best thing I ever did.
So, back when you're 2007 and 8, like what is this like? Is this a juvenile detention center? Or are you in several of them? Like, put the viewers and listeners back at that time. Like, that's got to be terrible.
Sure. Yeah, this is a great question. So just to be candid, it wasn't my first time incarcerated. I was kind of in and out of juvenile hall and juvenile detention facilities generally at that time. I came up rough. Like I said, I was a pretty normal kid until I just decided I didn't want to feel tormented anymore, and I overcorrected. I went from being a victim to a victimizer in a sense. I didn't want to be. I never wanted to be a bully. I never idolized that, and I don't even think that I was a bully, but I definitely wasn't living right, at least not in accordance with my current values. And so I was in and out of juvenile halls, and for this particular offense, the security risk was too high because of my past incarceration and criminal history and stuff at that time. So although I was housed at a juvenile hall style facility, it was actually a facility within a facility. It's often referred to as the compound, and that's for HROs or high risk offenders. So that'd be like murderers, attempted murderers, sex offenders, gang members who have been sentenced to juvenile life. Yeah. So
I hear a lot of stuff in the news. I know some of our other attorney friends are taking cases against these juvenile detention centers. Are these stories true?
Oh yeah. So I've seen a lot of articles like that on social media, and there are advertisements for people saying, hey, if you experience this kind of abuse, reach out. But essentially, what it looks like to me is these are class action lawsuits for people that were busted in these facilities back in in the time that I was there in the early 2000s. They include like Silmar Juvenile Hall, Central, Los Padrinos. I think some of those juvenile halls have already been shut down, but essentially, it's abuse by staff, whether it's sexual abuse for some people or physical abuse. I mean, we were fighting staff back then. I mean,
wow.
Yeah, kids fighting grown men.
It was really that bad.
Oh yeah.
Oh man, I'm sorry to hear that.
I've seen kids get picked up, and not by the staff, but just to give you an idea of the violence. I've seen kids get picked up and ran headfirst into cinder block walls. I've seen, I've been in countless fights, yard riots, OC spray. I mean, so all those things that you see on adult prisons, all the same stuff happens in those, or at least
to kids.
Yeah, to kids. But back, I don't know how things are now. I'm about to be 35. Things might have changed, but when I was there, yeah, it was a little prison for sure.
Yeah, and if you could speak to some people that might be watching or listening that were there around that time, I mean, I think they should just reach out to you, man. Just at least because you're now in a place I think that you can, even though you're still in law school, about to be a lawyer, in a year or two, I think you're in a place to help those folks because you've been through it.
Well, that's really why I'm here. That's what put all this in motion. People ask all the time, yeah, you're in your mid-30s, like why rechart your course now? And it took me a long time to kind of come full circle and click for me, but I spent the better half of my early adult years trying to become this, as I said, physical embodiment of Captain America, just this super soldier who's physically untouchable. And I think I did a pretty good job at that. But ultimately what I realized was when I needed it most in my life, in my darkest moments, and I thought I was going off the edge of a cliff and never coming back. You know, it wasn't some Green Berets or SEALs rappelling off the skids of a helicopter or whatever, kicking in doors, throwing flashbangs that helped get me out of that situation. It was a super motivated, well-educated attorney that believed in me, in tandem with my dad and my mom, my family that knew that I was innocent of that crime. But I was not an innocent child, but these people, they all loved and believed in me anyway. And they knew that the juice was worth the squeeze, that I was lost and just needed help finding my way. And so that attorney, he saved my life, gave me another shot, and I wouldn't be here today with you.
Where was the attorney? What was his name? Do you remember?
Yeah, his name was Phil Israels, and you know, he's an older gentleman. He was you know, he was older at the time, and you know, I don't know if he watches this podcast, and I don't know if he's still practicing, but you know, I owe him everything, and wow. I can't express thank you enough, and I just feel really blessed.
Okay, so now you get through, you get your recruiter, you get your GED. What's the next step for Kevin Bernstein?
So then it was just getting into the military, and it was you know, I was actually born blind in my left eye, and that's vision is a prerequisite, as you would imagine, for the military. Yeah. So I was pretty much disqualified from any of the jobs that I wanted to do coming out of the gate to get in the military, and that's why I entered as a combat engineer. And once I got my foot in the door, I was able to kind of demonstrate through you know, show my merit, you know, through physical activity and leadership, things like that. And I was put into leadership roles while I was there. And so toward the end of the training cycle, based on merit, they ask people who have done well, hey, do you want to go to airborne school? Do you want to go to Pathfinder school? Things like that. And they offered me my choice. I chose airborne. My brother was airborne at the time, and I looked up to him a bit, and I wanted to jump out of airplanes and do the cool guy stuff. You know, kind of went on about my business, got on the bus, sent me to airborne school, crushed it, and they sent me to the 82nd Airborne Division. And when I got there, I pretty much just volunteered to deploy right away, and they sent me to Iraq, where I had my first deployment. I think it was within like 3 weeks or so of showing up at the 82nd.
Wow, 3 weeks.
Yeah.
So the early 2000s, you know, what are your aspirations at this time?
So once I got through all that criminal stuff, I really just wanted to put it in the rear view and show that the juice was worth the squeeze. Up until that point, I had never given anyone, my family, myself, like I had never given anyone anything to be proud of. And I really wanted to show that I am special in some way, you know, and my brother was already in the military, so just being in the military wasn't really enough to separate myself. And so I knew from minute one, before I even got my foot in the door, I was born, you know, a Green Beret, Ranger, all these things. I just, you know, I didn't have that tab yet. You know, I just needed to prove to the, you know, to the gatekeepers that I was that thing that I said I was. So when I got in there, I pretty much just tried to take every opportunity I could to show the juice was worth the squeeze. And I think at first I struggled a little bit to adapt, but once I kind of got through that, like I think the institutionalization kind of messed with me a little bit, you know, transitioning from the jail stuff to the military. But once I accepted that this is where I'm at now and this is what I'm doing with my life, I fully committed to that. Doors opened for me, and I never looked back.
So, I mean, we know now, if we're listening to the episode, that 2006 is when you were finally found factually innocent. We're now early 2000s, so was that the barrier for you to become the dream of the Green Beret? Special Forces? Yeah,
actually, so it was actually 2016.
2016, sorry.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So,
even later.
Yeah. So this all happened 2007, 2008 with the court stuff, and then or for the attempted murder stuff. And then after we got through that, I joined the military. It kept, you know, as you know, with the law, it in some ways functions like a one-way revolving door. It's really easy to get in, very difficult to get out. And even though I was found not guilty, as you know, not guilty is not the same as innocent. And it just kept rearing its head. It kept coming up. And so after I came back from that deployment, I knew I wanted to get into the special operations community. So I applied to go to special forces, and again, had to cheat the eye exam and all that stuff. And by the grace of God or the universe, whatever you want to call it, things worked out. My vision did not stop me, although it should have. And I went to Special Forces selection. I first time GOAD selection, which just means I passed without any issue first time through. You know, most people go through a couple times. So I felt, you know, super excited, super lucky. And I was actually selected on my birthday.
Wow.
Yeah, the day they called me in and said, hey, like you've been selected for service in the Special Forces Regiment. It was my birthday. I don't remember what year. I think it was June 23rd, 2011. But it might have been 2012. I'm pretty sure it's 2011. So anyway, when I reported back for the Special Forces Qualification Course, which is this like year plus pipeline to earn your Green Beret, I was there for a while, and it was exemplary. Exemplary. I didn't have any issues, no academic failures for any. We call them gates, and gates are like little kind of checkpoints throughout the course to make sure you're still meeting certain standards. But then one day they called me in and they said, "Hey, Commander wants to talk to you." And so I waited there all day long, literally from like 9 in the morning all day, and nobody ever came to get me. It was a Friday. Everyone went home, and they just forgot about me. So everyone went home. I was there till like 8 p.m. All the lights were going off. I called my dad at the time. I'm like, "Hey, I don't know what's going on," but nobody ever came back for me, and I'm just sitting here. Everyone went home for the weekend. So I went back to my barracks room, and then on Monday they were like, "Hey, now we're ready to talk to you." And they called me in. Yeah, they called me in, and they're like, "Hey, everyone's got skeletons in their closet, so if you just kind of fall on your sword, everything will be all right." And so I didn't want to start a new relationship. I was trying to turn over a new leaf. So I believe all relationships should be started on a foundation of trust and honesty. Mm-hmm. So also the Special Operations community, it's an integrity-based organization, and I didn't want to violate that day one. So I told him the truth. I grew up a street kid. I can't control where I grow up or where I grew up. And yeah, I got in a lot of trouble as a kid, and I was involved with this offense back in 2008. But I was innocent of that crime, and so they pretty much just said, "Hey, thanks for being honest. Now get the fuck out of my office."
Really?
Oh yeah, yeah. So they kicked me out of the course. I had to carry all my belongings. Usually there's like a van that they use to take you from the in-training barracks to the out-of-training barracks. Once for the quitters or the people who get removed from training. And so when they sent me on my way, it was just like, yeah, get the, I don't know if I'm allowed
You can
to
swear, yeah, that's fine.
So they were like, "Yeah, hey, get this bitch out of my office, get the fuck out of here." And they set me down the road, and literally one rucksack at a time, just carried all my stuff to the out-of-training barracks. Yeah, tried to
So
appeal.
all this thing's rearing its ugly head again.
Yep.
And I mean, that's got to be so embarrassing for you to have your dream crushed and have to walk out of there.
Yeah, and they tell you, while you're there, quitters are looked at like parasites. In all those communities, doesn't matter, Navy SEAL, Rangers, Green Berets. It's like that's the one environment where just if you're a quitter, you don't belong here. Bottom line. And so to be in the out-of-training barracks with all the quitters, for me, it was just kind of like, man, I'm surrounded by like all this toxicity, all these, like I'm not one of them. I'm not one of you, kind of thing. And it was just like a very difficult internal thing I was going through. And I did everything I could to get back in. I appealed, and it just didn't work out. They sent me on my way to Alaska. And when I got there, I pretty much just said, you know what, and I kind of did the pity party thing for a little in between in that transition phase. I did, I felt sorry for myself for a little while, and I decided I can't continue this way. So, I chose to just kind of soldier up and get my stuff together. They put me in a team leader slot, and I volunteered to deploy to Afghanistan. So within a couple of weeks of getting to Alaska, I was on my way out the door again to Afghanistan, and that was my second combat deployment.
So how long? Because we know you exited the military at some point. When does this happen?
So that happened 2015. Yeah. So I had a couple more deployments, and I went to Ranger School and Sapper School and Mountain Warfare School. I had a bunch of great training opportunities in my career. It didn't just like kind of fizzle out. I still got to do a lot of great things, and I'm very thankful for the training that I received. And I still feel lucky. I had a great military career despite that. It wasn't like the end of me or the end of my career. It was a hard pill to swallow, but that's life, isn't it? We all kind of go through things, and you got to choose. Am I going to feel sorry for myself or take it on the chin, learn from it, adjust fire and re-engage? So I chose to re-engage. And so come 2015, I made E6 or staff sergeant points, and the Army kind of held me hostage. Hey, if you want to pin that rank, you have to re-enlist or get out. Or if you get out, you're not going to get the rank. And I didn't want to allow fear to dictate my decisions. And I was kind of scared of like, well, what am I going to do when I get out? This is all I know, But I chose to get out anyway. I didn't want to be that guy just allowing this kind of fear of the unknown to manipulate my decision. So I chose to get out, and I enrolled myself into at the University of Phoenix. It's like this kind of
online course.
Yeah.
I know I know that one.
Yeah, I think ironically, I think they've been sued and stuff for abuse of. I don't want to misspeak, but I think that they've had some kind of like negative publicity related to kind of messing with veterans benefits and things like that. But I don't want to throw any shade there. But yeah, it's not like the best school. I didn't go to Columbia. I didn't go to Harvard like for undergrad. I just went to University of Phoenix. I didn't know any better. Didn't know I wanted to be an attorney at the time. My brothers were already attending that academic institution, and it just kind of made sense. It allowed me to collect the GI Bill money while I figured things out, and I could continue to kind of keep that momentum going after getting out. And so that's what I did. I got a business degree, and everything was kind of going okay, but my life had no purpose.
Yeah. You didn't no fulfillment at that time, right? I mean,
Zero.
So if you had to, if you had to look into that camera and talk to some folks that were in that place, early teens on the streets, and they feel like they can't get out, what would you say to them?
I would say that that's a decision that you have to make for yourself. Like we're all kind of dealt the cards that we're dealt, and you have two options. You can either feel sorry for yourself or you can do something about it. And I know that not everyone has the same resources. Some people have deeper pockets. They have connections and things like that. And I certainly didn't have any of that. But I've played both sides of the coin. I did the pity party thing, and then I also kind of, as I said, soldiered up and put one foot in front of the other and figured it out. And thank God I did. And I think that you should, not be too proud to lean on your community, whether it's guys that you knew in the military, your family, your friends. You don't need to take it all on yourself. In the military, there's kind of this suffer in silence thing, and if I'm honest, I still kind of embody that. I'm not usually a super emotional guy, and I'm not really somebody that outwardly projects my feelings. I just kind of internalize and deal with it my own way. But I've been learning to be better about that and try to lean on the people around me, and I think that it's an invaluable resource. Family and friends can't touch on that enough. And the military also teaches leaders that soldiers need purpose, direction, and motivation to be successful. But what they don't teach you is that when you get out of the military, there's no one there to give you that sense of purpose anymore. So you have to find it for yourself. And I would encourage everyone, whoever's watching this who maybe feels like they're spiraling or spinning their wheels, not getting any traction in life, that instead of chasing money, chasing girls, chasing power, respect, whatever it is, whatever the kind of superficial goal is, to kind of take it back a little bit to maybe when you were a kid and think about whatever made you happy.
That's a good point. Chase purpose,
Yeah.
right? What you just said. There's too much we see it all over social media. People are just chasing clout. I need car, the girl, all these other things. But if you chase like that end goal of purpose, of like some defining moment for you, it's a different ball game if you have that focus.
Yeah.
So when did you come, 2016, you have factual finding of innocence. You're now graduating with a business degree from University of Phoenix. When does this decision and purpose go to, I'm going to start helping people like they helped me?
Man, that's also a great question. And I don't know if I can pinpoint the exact day or time, or even a kind of around. From the time I was little, I always wanted to help people. I'm built that way. I'm a protector. That's just who I am. But I didn't know how to do it. It's like when I'm sure before you found all the success that you found in your life, like you knew that maybe you were destined for great things or that you wanted to make an impact. You just didn't know how yet. And I think we just kind of, again, in the military, we learned the 3S: fail, forward, fast. And so that just means that, failure is inevitable. So it's better to embrace it. You're going to stumble. So go ahead and stumble, learn the lesson that there is to be learned, adjust, fire, re-engage. And the faster that you can kind of apply that framework, the more kind of things you can test out. And then the more you test out, the more you figure out where you can be successful, what works for you, what doesn't work for you. And so my life is really just a series of blunders. It's one failure after another failure after another failure after another failure. My superpower, if I had one, is probably just my ability to either be miserable or fail and like get kicked in the teeth and just like keep coming back for more.
Like Wolverine, man, regenerate
A little bit, yeah. Except I don't know that I regenerate quite as good as he does. My body's pretty banged up. But I think really that's it. I just kept failing and failing and failing, and then finally I realized that the silver lining of all my failures is I could help other people by sharing my failures, my blunders, and then how that led to success. I could spare other people the pain of the failure. You know, they don't have to walk it. They don't have to walk a mile in my shoes. They can just watch this podcast.
That's what I'm saying. So, I mean, how does somebody that has the past that you do, have your GED, University of Phoenix, get into Loyola Law School, which is like one of the best law schools? I mean, how does that go down, man? I mean,
you know, sometimes the whole story is crazy, and sometimes I don't believe it myself. And this whole thing has kind of been a real dream come true for me. So after I got out of the military, as I said, I kind of spiraled a bit, but eventually, you know, around the COVID time, I decided, you know what, something's got to give. There's got to be a change. It's got to be a big one. So I decided to hop in the car, and I took a little bit of a road trip to try to figure out where I wanted to pick up and move to, just to give myself a little time and distance to kind of figure life out, and then you know, hopefully get a little bit of clarity. So ultimately, I ended up in Montana, and it was one of the best things that I ever did. I ended up in Montana. I found met some great people, found this awesome lot, and literally just a big open lot. It's like 6.5 acres or so, and I decided I was going to build a house there. Okay? Quite literally hammered stakes into the ground to mark where the house was going to be, and over the series of a couple months, the house was built. And then I picked up my whole life. I don't have any family, no friends, like no roots in Montana. It was real kind of left field thing. Everyone thought I was nuts. Like, hey man, what are you moving to Montana for? But I just saw so clearly in my head, you know, this vision, and I pursued it. And come like 2020 or so, I ended up, maybe 2019, somewhere around there, I moved my entire life to Montana. And I do the whole deal, like bull riding, bronc riding, horses, donkeys, you know, like the whole Montana experience. It was a great time, and I can't wait to get back there. But by being there, having that time and space, and just like that fresh air, really just being able to reflect on everything. That's when I had that epiphany about, you know, when I needed it most in life. It wasn't some super soldier kicking in doors that came to rescue me. It was that well-educated attorney. And as my body has deteriorated over the years from, you know, doing all kinds of you know, crazy physical stuff, whether it's, you know, weight training or ruck marching, jumping out of airplanes, whatever, I've had to kind of learn to use other tools that I didn't really know I had. And, you know, out of necessity, we start to discover you know, new strengths we didn't know we had, and one of those strengths was intellectual aptitude. I didn't know that I was capable intellectually of anything. I was just thought I was this dummy. Like I'm just like kind of a fire and forget torpedo kind of thing. And you know, once I realized, like, oh wow, you know, I'm not dumb. I just decided, you know what, I'm going to see how far I can take this. And I took my first, I'll never forget it, I took my diagnostic LSAT in Montana. Wow. And I didn't read anything about it, didn't study, just sat down and took it, and I did horribly. Maybe like a 143. And anybody who knows, like...
I mean, it's not like crazy low. I mean, people get into law school with a 143.
Sure. But you asked how I got into Loyola.
Yeah,
you know?
I want to know.
Yeah, so 143 ain't cutting.
Nope.
Right. So I felt horrible. I Googled, like, hey, what's the average LSAT score people get on like a diagnostic, and it came up with numbers higher than a 143. So I was feeling pretty poor about myself, and I decided, you know what, like that's not going to be the end of the story, man. So my diagnostic was 145. So I want to see where you ended up. Same thing. Here you go. Come on. Yeah, you went to Loyola too, yeah?
No, I went to Pepperdine.
Oh, okay. It's actually a better school technically on the rankings.
Yeah, rankings are schmankings,
yeah.
But. Yeah. Gary Dordick's one of my best friends, my original mentor. The building that we met in was named after him, the Dordick family one.
Yeah, I saw that. I mean, everyone that I've spoken to says the guy's a bit of a hitter. Like, he's good at his job.
He's fantastic.
Yeah.
And his wife went to Loyola, just passed the bar like 2 years ago. I think she's 55.
Yeah, Loyola's cranked out a lot of really, really great attorneys. Yeah. So I feel lucky to be there. Really, I do. And in fact, when we get to that part of the story, I'll explain why I chose Loyola. But anyway, I studied that night. I like went online. I read a little bit about the test. I didn't know that like they don't mark wrong answers. Like you can guess if you have 20 answers left and you guess B or whatever you choose to guess. They don't take points off for wrong answers. They just give you more points for the ones you get right. It's just like a zero value.
You could just do the abacadabra, right?
Yeah, if you wanted to. Yeah. So just like learning how the test worked overnight, I went from like a 143 to like a 153.
Wow.
I just took another test the next morning. Didn't learn anything new. I just understood the test a little better. And that gave me hope that like, oh, this is learnable. So then I started studying, and I told myself, I'm not taking an LSAT till I'm over the threshold where I needed to be for the schools I wanted to go to. And at first, Loyola wasn't the school that I had on my mind. I think we all, when we're looking at law school, we all want to go to the big schools, right? Like Harvard, Stanford, Yale, we all get super excited about that, and I was no different. And I really felt like I had something to prove. So especially for me, I wanted to get into a good school to show my family, like, hey, look, your kid's not a dummy. So I kept studying. 6 months in, it's like, oh man, now we're past 165. And I remember getting in bed. Yeah, I remember getting in bed and telling my fiance all through the phase, like, oh, I'll never break 160. Oh, I'll never break 165. Man, I just can't. I'm never gonna break 170. And she's like, no, keep trying, keep trying. And I think I ended up studying for close to a year, maybe 9 months or something like that. But sure as shit, man. Eventually, I went from 143, 153. Then I'm 160. I broke 160, broke 165, broke 170. I think my highest practice LSAT exam was like a 178.
Oh, that's almost perfect.
Yeah. And I was in disbelief, and maybe that was a fluke. But once I got to that stage where I was steadily over 170, that's when I felt it was time to take the LSAT. Mm-hmm. And I took it, and I bombed it. The first one, I scored a 165 as my official score.
Oh, wow, bomb. 165 is fantastic. I mean,
look, I'm super happy about it. But, I had friends taking the LSAT that were doing better or earned a higher score than I did. And it just wasn't the score I wanted. I was just sad about it. I really wanted to show my family and friends, like, hey, look, your boy's not a dummy.
You can get into like 90% of law schools with a 165.
Well, that's actually not true. I'll get there. So, I'll just jump right to it, actually. So, my scores were good. My scores were good, but my academic pedigree was not so good, coming from the University of Phoenix and all that stuff we talked about. So, and then I had some of that criminal stuff. So, when I applied to these schools, I had explained some of the kind of legal mishaps of my past. Granted, I had a lot of time and distance on my side. This was back in 2007, 2008. I think was the last time I was arrested for some serious criminal offense. So was that like 15, 20 years, maybe more, by the time I was applying to law school. I didn't think it would be an issue, but apparently I was wrong. Something was an issue. I thought I brought a pretty diverse package. Yeah. Granted, it wasn't like the kind of, when we think diversity, I know that I'm not like the stereotypical kind of like first thought that pops up, but when you really get into my background, I thought, I bring a pretty diverse package, as far as my education, my life experience, and all that stuff.
Like you're a person law schools would want.
I was hoping that would be the case. But I ended up applying to like 28 law schools, and I was waitlisted by a few good ones, but rejected by most. I think the first school to reject me was Harvard. That took like 2 weeks. They just like, nah, we're good. And that sucked, but at the end of the day, you want to get in where you fit in. So it was really important to me to go where I was wanted. Loyola was the only school, and that's really what made me want to go there. It was the only school where they called me up, and they made very clear that they were really interested in me and my story. They thought it was great.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and they just asked for, just a couple documents to confirm I had been found factually innocent. And when I sent that over, they just sent me the acceptance letter.
Wow.
And it felt so good to not, like, no strings attached, like, hey, we want you. You're what we're looking for. That I was like, that's the school for me. And I just stopped looking after that. I wasn't waiting for any more decisions to come back. I just didn't care. I wanted to go where I was wanted, because in my entire life, that had never been the case for me. Where I was like number one pick for somebody. So it was just such a good feeling to feel wanted like that. I chose Loyola, and that's where I'm at.
We're gonna hear the rest of your story another time, because I want to take a deeper dive at that. But I kind of want to stop, like, at this moment in time for you, where Kevin Bernstein for the first time is the number one picks, where you feel accepted, where somebody's finally like, I heard your story, we want you. After all this waiting and looking back at the past, and that skeleton to come back in, and here you are. You know what, man? I can't wait for you to pass that bar and help a lot of folks. And or anybody watching or listening, reach out to Kevin if you've been in these life situations, if you've been in juvenile detention centers, if you have been, in the military and you're maybe having a hard time transitioning out of it. There is hope. There is purpose that you can find. Kevin, what's the best place for them just to reach out to you if they have any questions?
Yeah, I mean, I wish, this is first time for me on the podcast.
Yeah.
I wish I had like a website or a platform, but I mean, really it's just maybe social media. Yeah. Like Instagram handle would be k.freight. So
K.freight.
That's right. Yeah. K.freight.
Got it. K.freight. We'll find it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well, thank you, everybody. This is, I want to do this for a long time, this interview, but Kevin, thanks for coming on. Everyone, thanks for watching or listening to the Justice Team podcast and the Justice Team Network. Reach out to Kevin if you have any questions, but this was powerful shit, man. Appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. This is first time telling my story publicly. I'm glad it was here, glad it was with you, and I really appreciate the vote of confidence, and I look forward to next time.
Sweet, bro. All right, thanks everybody. Ciao.